Anyone that follows the channel knows that I often try to cast some light on various 2000s rock bands that either never quite got their big break or have just been forgotten down the years. Now, ever since I started doing this, there has been one particular group that I've really wanted to look into. However, it took me all the way until today to finally make that a reality. But here we are now, talking about Egypt Central. Now, Egypt Central is a name that might ring a bell for a few people. Perhaps fans of wrestling games, as two of their songs were featured on the SVR 2009 soundtrack. However, overall, this is a band not often talked about. And with their relatively recent comeback and news of more music coming this year, I thought, why not talk about them now? This group never properly broke through into the mainstream, although a few of their songs did get some decent radio play here and there. But all in all, let's just say that their exposure certainly wasn't equal to their quality. But before we get into all that, let's start at the beginning, shall we? Named after a road in the band's home city of Memphis, Tennessee, Egypt Central were formed in late 2002. The band has gone on record as saying that their formation was essentially a result of the band members' less than ideal upbringings, describing it all as follows. It's no Rockwell painting, that's for sure, but it all had to be exactly that way or we never would have met. Everything that happened in our past had to happen exactly the way it did for us to come together. The band's local performances eventually earned them the attention of Lava Records, who signed the outfit and allowed them to record their self-titled debut album. Actually releasing said album would prove to be a lot more difficult, however. The record would end up being shelved by the label, and Egypt Central had to resort to releasing it independently in 2005. There was new hope for a proper label-backed release the next year as the band signed with Beeler Bros Records, but that deal also didn't last, parting ways with the label about a month before the disc was set to drop. Finally, after signing a deal that wouldn't end abruptly with F.A.D Music in October of 2007, the group remixed and remastered the album before finally giving it a well-deserved proper release in January of 2008, after years of trouble and delays. Chosen as the lead single for radio was the track You Make Me Sick, which ended up peaking at number 21 on the mainstream rock chart. Both that song and its follow-up single Taking You Down would also appear on the soundtrack of wrestling game SmackDown vs. Raw 2009, giving the band some extra exposure as the latter single also got some mainstream rock radio play, peaking at number 37. Overall, the album wasn't exactly a commercial hit, but the group finally had a base to build from, and they were able to tour with acts such as Disturbed, Cedar, Sevendust, and Red as a result. But while this record did not set the world alight on the charts or in sales, the quality of the music tells a much different story. What we've got here is a 38-minute long track list of awesome 2000s alt-rock. It's almost like a highlight reel of some of the scene's best elements, all together forming a package that I personally hold very close to my heart. It is definitely among my favorite albums of all time, being one of the most complete records that I've ever come across. One more thing before we even get to the music though, is I just have to take a moment to acknowledge the cover art, which was specifically made for this 2008 release. Though it's something very superficial, good album art can do a lot for your listening experience. A sick cover at the very least helps pull you into listening to a particular album, and that's definitely the case here. It's not anything complex, yet this gas mask wearing army dude on the side here, next to this flower shaped whatever the hell, all in this red tint, it's 2000s as all hell and I've always loved it. But now, the music. Starting off with the opener, we have Different, a song clearly leaning more towards the nu metal side of the 2000s spectrum, with a very rappy bridge. That's the price I paid for being different. The topic is nothing you haven't heard before, but it's executed without fault here, and it works great as an album opener. I personally love the guitar on this track, especially the atmospheric strumming in the intro and verses, and how it progresses into the main riff. It's a great cut all around. The great guitar work especially is a recurring theme on this whole disc, so be on the lookout for that. The album then does everything but lose steam as we move into track 2, the aforementioned lead single You Make Me Sick. Oh my, do I love this song. Everything about it, I don't even know if I can talk about it in an objective analytical way. It's a song about a love-hate relationship of sorts, growing sick of someone you're close to, as the title suggests, but at the same time, you love what you've got together. It's toxic, it's beautiful.
You make me sick, but I love what we're doing here. You make me sick, and I can't be the only one.
The relatable subject matter mixed together with the haunting vocal delivery and atmospheric instrumentation results in a super memorable cut. The verses have this edgy, sinister vibe to them as the lyrics look back at their whole relationship before the hook kicks in and dials up the energy to 100. The vocal performance is simply exceptional, and honestly that's the case on the entire disc. I just really love the voice and singing style of band frontman John Falls. It's the glue that holds all the great pieces together. Moving on to track 3, Over and Under, which immediately starts off with an unbelievably catchy guitar riff, and throughout its entire sub 3 minute runtime, it never loses any momentum, being an awesome roller coaster start to finish. It is one of the catchiest rock songs I've ever heard and might just be my favorite cut from the record, but it is a close call. It's short and sweet, straight to the point, filled with attitude and energy, and it's relatable as all hell, being about finally getting over someone that wasn't right for you, a universal topic.
I'm over leaving under you. I'm breaking free, I'm breaking through. I've overcome.
I'm over me, being under you, I'm breaking free, I'm breaking through. It's simple but so damn powerful. I love this song. It doesn't matter what setting I'm in, if this track starts playing, best believe I'm not going to be able to resist it for those next 3 minutes. If you're in a relatable situation, then this is the perfect song to let go of all bottled up emotions. It's amazing, and I'm not saying that lightly. After that, we have the other single, Taking You Down. It's another straight to the point rocker that once again clocks in at just under 3 minutes. You see the title? That's the song, Taking You Down. No beating around the bush. Sometimes the simplest messages are the most effective ones, and that's the case here. Just another rapid fire track that gets stuck in your head and has just the right amount of attitude to help you let loose without overdoing it. It is on track 5, Leap of Faith, that the album takes its first opportunity to calm down a little. Now, you might think, why? Surely it just kills all the momentum, but don't you worry, that is definitely not the case. Leap of Faith is a very heartfelt and genuine track about needing someone to be there for you to help you carry on, acknowledging a sense of hopelessness alongside a need for something more. In concept, it once again doesn't sound like anything all that special, but once more the band managed to create something that just works so well. The sum is greater than all of its parts, the parts being the vocals, the lyrics, the guitar, you name it. Together it crafts this mega genuine and emotionally driven cut that slows down the overall tempo, yet fits in perfectly.
I need a friend to depend on. I need so much more. Another reason to live my life is knocking on my door.
But still, even if the sappy vibe wasn't quite your cup of tea, the album shifts right back into gear with The Way. Now, thematically, it's a pretty sad, bittersweet kind of song about being away from someone and feeling guilty about it as you miss them. Once again, the emotions come through without feeling forced at all, and the song manages to be catchy yet very real. The chorus just feels like an actual genuine apologetical cry out to someone, and everything comes to a head in the bridge where the emotions erupt like a volcano. What can I say, just another exceptional song. Now, as we move into the second half of the album, though perhaps not quite as strong, this section of the disc still has some great gems like Push Away and Just Another Lie. And all in all, I'd say that there is no real filler to speak of here at all, being a very complete package cover to cover. At the end of the road, after the crazy part of the roller coaster has come to an end, we have the album closer Home, an acoustic ballad that in a way completely shifts the tone of the record right at the end, and at the same time, I couldn't imagine a better way of closing it out. I know I've said this before about ballads, but believe me when I say that this here is a beautiful, emotionally charged ballad that feels like it's straight from the heart.
And be home again. Now that you're gone, I can see I was wrong. Back in your arms, I feel.
The lyrics, the vocals, the subtle instrumentation that kicks in the background as the track progresses, it's all so wonderful and acts as a sort of cherry on the cake in the context of this whole album, really completing the overall package. I feel like I've already spent a lot of time talking about how much I adore this record, and still I feel like I could go on and on. Simply put, this is a criminally underrated album that deserves a lot more love in my opinion. Now perhaps it's just my questionable music taste that's putting it on such a pedestal for myself, but honestly, check it out, it's worth it. After some touring, Egypt Central would eventually get back into the studio to record their follow-up album. The first time they had entered the studio for a full-length project of new material since the mid-2000s. The result of this was the album White Rabbit, released in 2011.
Your magic, white rabbit, your white room, straight jacket. Your magic, white rabbit, has left its writing on the wall. We follow like Alice and just keep diving down the hole.
The lead single was the title track, which is easily the band's most successful and well-known song, definitely if you go off the Spotify numbers. It peaked at number 17 on the mainstream rock chart, making it Egypt Central's most successful radio single too. And well, it's a great track. Sure, some people might be sick and tired of Alice in Wonderland analogies in music, but for what it is, it works very well here. And most importantly, it retains that magic of what made the band's debut album special. It's probably my favorite cut from this second album, but how's the rest of the disc? Well, I will immediately go out and say that no, it is not as good as its predecessor, something that I think other fans would agree with me on. But despite that, it's still a super solid rock album. It still manages to recreate some of that magic that was seen on the debut here and there. It's just that it now shares the stage with some more, well, mainstream hard rock aspects across the board. You do have to realize that because of all the delays that the self-titled debut had, the band actually had about a 6-year gap in between releases. And in that kind of time frame, it's only logical that your sound would change a little bit, as did the whole music scene. Case in point is a song like Kick Ass, which was the album's second single.
Stand up, get your hands up. Oh, are you ready to? Are you ready to stand up? Get your hands up. Oh, are you ready to? Stand up.
From its title to its groovy riff, you can immediately tell the difference in tone. This is a lot more similar to the kind of mainstream rock that was popular on the charts around that time. Perhaps something that the band picked up from their touring, or just having grown up, I don't know. Even though I understand it's not a sound for everyone, as this kind of attitude might cross the line of being a bit too much for some, since I am someone that even gives Nickelback a pass, I personally do still enjoy it. But again, don't take this all too negatively. This is an album that I have a lot of affinity for. Hell, I wouldn't have fought tooth and nail to get my hands on a physical copy a few years back if I didn't, for a pretty hefty price as well. You've still got many other awesome cuts on here, like the atmospheric opener Ghost Town, the more emotional Good Night and Change, one of my personal favorites in Down in Flames, the two-parter consisting of The Drug and Enemy Inside. This album definitely ain't no throwaway.
Wake up, determination. I am afraid we're going down. Afraid we're going down in vain.
So all in all, despite it not quite matching the self-titled album for me, I still feel that White Rabbit is more than worthy of checking out, especially if you are a fan of mainstream rock. However, after the release of the second album, a period of inactivity would follow for the group, which years later would be described as a very tense time for the band, and it all led to Egypt Central disbanding in 2012, rather soon after White Rabbit hit the shelves. This apparently happened because frontman John Fall simply took off and broke contact with the other band members, following an extended strained period for the group, marred by rising tensions within the lineup, with things getting downright physical at one point. If you want to read about this in more detail, I highly suggest checking out the band's social media, where they explained all of this. I think they took down the original post on Instagram, but it can still be found on their Facebook. Anyhow, after the split, an EP made up of previously unreleased material came out in 2014. It included the song Citizen Radio, which would go on to rack up some pretty good numbers on Spotify, becoming one of the band's most streamed songs to date. But outside of this, things would remain rather quiet, as EC's backing members, drummer Blake Allison and bass player Joey Chicago Walzer, would start their own group instead, in which Allison moved from behind the drum kit to the role of frontman. This project was named Devour the Day and would prove to be pretty successful. As of today, the band has released 3 albums, which spawned a number of singles that performed well on rock radio, some of my personal favorites being Good Man and The Bottom. I actually saw Devour the Day live at what to this day is still the last concert I've been able to go to, when they opened for Skillet in December of 2019. And I've gotta admit, even if it is slightly embarrassing that at the time I was completely unaware that I was listening to 2/3 of Egypt Central. Anyway, without going on too much of a tangent, Devour the Day is a pretty good band in its own right, though its sound differs quite a lot to that of Egypt Central, being more akin to a group like Shinedown, at least in my opinion. But back on track. With the success of Devour the Day and the years of Egypt Central remaining inactive, it seemed like a return was unthinkable. At least it seemed that way until 2019, when after some cryptic messages, the band, now a 3-piece consisting of the 2 Devour the Day members plus a returning John Falls on vocals, released Raise the Gates, a song that the band had performed live many years ago, though it wasn't until then that they had released an actual studio version. Egypt Central would follow this up by sporadically releasing 5 more singles in the coming months, all the way into 2021, before packaging them all together into a 6-track EP titled Burn With You. Since then, the group has released another single in the shape of Beautiful Misery featuring Mike's Dead, and recently the band announced on their social media that they had more big plans in store for 2022, and it's safe to say that I'm pretty excited. When I said before that it seemed like a return for the band was not likely at all, I wasn't just saying that. Even the band members themselves thought that way. Upon their return, they explained that they never thought they'd be talking again, let alone making music together. Now once more, this story goes rather deep, and I won't get into all that here, so if you're interested in reading up more on this, you can do exactly that on the band's Facebook. And after doing so, you'll realize how lucky we are to see these guys back together after all these years still putting out new music, and with more on the way this year. Never say never, I guess, and as the band has said themselves, they're writing new chapters. It's a story that I feel is quite inspiring in general. In any case, I myself am really looking forward to what Egypt Central has in store for the future. More singles, maybe a new album after all these years. Only time will tell, but I'll certainly be among those first in line to check it out. Sure, in many ways this is not the same band as over a decade ago, but that's only fair, and I've still definitely enjoyed some of the newer singles that the group has put out, like the super catchy Hunted for instance, so I can't wait for what's to come. And that's the story of Egypt Central. So far. I hope I'm not sounding like a broken record at this point, but I highly recommend you guys check out their material. At least their self-titled album. If your music taste is any bit like mine, then you're doing yourself an absolute disservice by not giving it a listen. But on that note, we've come to the end of this video. Let me know in the comments below if any of you guys already knew of Egypt Central and what you think of the band. As always, I love to read your thoughts. However, that will be it from me. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed. My name is F.A.D, and I'm gonna see you guys in my next video. Bye.